Welcome to Personal Mastery Training. I'm your host, Alvin Brown, former world class athlete turned entrepreneur and consultant. Join us as we learn from guests who have conquered their inner battles and share their journeys to success. Get ready for inspirational masterclasses and thought provoking strategy sessions to fuel your path to personal mastery. Let's dive in. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Personal Mastery Training with the Personal Mastery Alliance. And if it's your first time, remember what the deal is here. Life is lifing. And life, there is no book. There's zero books you can buy. The closest thing is maybe the Bible of truth that have gone on and someone's left them behind in those scriptures, or quotes which we now call wisdoms, that someone, a little snippet of someone's experience that they left behind, there's some wisdom they left behind. So this podcast is all about throwing a topic on the table. We dissect it a bit, throw some ideas out at you. We don't own any truth. There's no such thing as, like Jim Rohn said, you can't make new antiques. We're only here to nudge you to think, to disagree or agree, but just think. Don't just get through your day. Think. So we're gonna open up the floor. Today, the main chef will be, and when we say chef, what we're doing is we're serving up some soul food. So the main chef today will be Raymond. And on the show we have Raymond, Brandon, and Dr. Charlie Cartwright. We are your usual main servers, and we add to what Raymond brings, and you can add your own. And if any of it inspires you, moves you, get your journal out, go even a step further, and that's when I know we've made an impact. And then also like, subscribe, and share. I'm gonna say that right at the gate. All right, so I'm gonna pass it on to Raymond. Let's deliver that main meal.
All right. So thank you guys. Happy to be here once again. This week I fell upon like a really old video by Dr. I'll read it right now, Russell Acuff, and he was really diving into the concept of just systems thinking. Okay, systems thinking. Every week we get on here and we have great conversations about personal mastery. Personal mastery, one way or another, equals growth to me. Okay, equals growth. But in reality, in whatever we're talking about, the only way to sustain growth is through systems. Okay. Is having the right systems, because it's one thing to grow, just like you look at a business, for instance, and someone hits their first 10K, okay, and they did all the right actions, they work very hard, but they don't have systems in place, then they're inconsistent. They cannot sustain that growth. Maybe the next month they go back down, right? And this is what happens. So if we truly want to sustain whatever we gain every single week in this life, we need the right systems. Okay. A great example of that, as he was diving in deeper into the subject, he's like, okay, in society we live as a group, bigger groups, let's say a community, smaller groups, let's say family unit. Okay. And whatever life throws at us, as you said, Alvin, life is lifing. Okay, life is lifing. Things will come to us, and oftentimes we think about ourselves and we think in a way that, hey, I'm gonna optimize whatever I have the best I can so I can perform to the best of my ability. I can become the greatest version of myself, and that will figure everything else out. But in reality, when you live as a unit, it's not just important for you to thrive, but if you're around parts that don't fit, okay, even if you're excelling, the whole may not be able to move forward. The whole may not be able to succeed, whatever comes, because you do need other people. You need to start with yourself, but you also need other people. Another great example of that, for anyone who loves cars, for instance, if you take the engine of a Ferrari, And then you look at any other best parts that you can think of from any other car models, and you put them all together by thinking that, hey, if I have all the best parts, I'll create the best car. Then you realize that this makes no sense. You don't have a car. You have nothing at all because these things don't fit. So now my next question for everyone and for myself and for ourselves is, do you have the right parts around you? Do you have people that fit? Do you have core values and principles that you can look someone in the eyes and both know you're going in the same direction? Because someone can get very, very good at doing the wrong things. Okay? Someone can get very, very good at going in the opposite direction. And will that serve the whole? You know, when life happens and it's truly needed to stand together, strong, and move forward. And as I really look at people who face adversity, okay, for real, in real instance, and I talk to them and I dive into what they do and who they are, I realize they've been having, they have a foundation of very strong systems, you know, that they relied on for a very long time, which created who they are. And those systems allowed them also to have all the right parts around them for the right situations. And that's how you sustain growth. So let's start thinking not just about growing, the act of growing is good. But if we don't have what it takes to sustain it, what's the point? Okay, what's the point? When life punches you in the mouth, what do you do? Okay, what do you do? Do you have the strong foundations? You need the right systems, you need the right parts. So this can open up in a lot of ways. I just thought this concept was very, very powerful and interesting, because we don't think that way every single day. And hey, do the parts fit? That's as important as performing yourself, for sure. If you're a leader in an organization, if you're in a marriage, you want your marriage to work. Ultimately, you can be the best version of yourself that you want. But if you're with someone that the parts just don't fit, it won't work out, right? So that's as important as performing ourselves. And with that, I'll pass the mic.
All right, all right. Well, Doc Charlie, you want to go? Go for it.
Yeah, so this reminds me of a wisdom from Mike Tyson actually years ago. And he said that everyone has a plan until they get hit, right? and so it's so true. And when you think about it, when you get punched in life, metaphorically, do you have a plan for that? Do you know what to do in a situation? You know how to react to adversity. And, having a good boxer has a system, has a protocol for when they get hurt, right? They know what to do, and so they can clear their head and get their legs back under them, and then continue on in the fight. But it's interesting when you've seen boxers that had a lot of success in their career and never had faced adversity in the ring, and then they get hurt, they get hit, and they don't know what to do, and they end up losing that fight, not because they're not a great fighter, but because they didn't have a plan for adversity. They didn't have a system to follow to get their head cleared. And I think that's so true for us as human beings in life. Adversity is going to come, and that's just going to be a part of life. And so, if we have, to Raymond's point, if we have a system, if we have a support system, right, which is really big, then we have people to call. We have books to read. We have friends and family to lean on to help us through that adversity. And then also, sometimes it comes down to, hey, there's a group of people that have faced a similar adversity, and we can draw on their wisdom and their lessons and their support to help us through that patch. But if we don't reach out, if we don't have those things in place, then sometimes that adversity can really set us back tremendously. And with that, I'll pass the mic.
All right, all right, all right. So I'm gonna jump in here. Is Ray, great conversation in so many ways, business and life. And I wrote in here, you said, Ray, systems are essential for consistency and sustainable maintenance of a process or life itself, right? That's the kind of flavor that I got. And I wrote, nature shows us that systems are essential for survival. We live in a system. We survive because of a system. We breathe carbon dioxide out. The trees need it. They give us oxygen. Nature itself is an incredible system. If the listeners don't know, my background is in as an osteopath, manual osteopath, and I've studied for 30 years. I've studied anatomy, physiology, and I find biology. I find it incredible the intelligence that put us together and the systems in your body. Incredible, the heart, the kidney, and they all need each other. Take one away, take one, never mind even away, but let one not work right, and you start to find out that they affect the heart, the kidney are affected by each other, the liver, you name it, pancreas. Which one do you want to include? Which one do you want to remove? They can survive, but are they going to be optimal? No. You may be able to survive without your gallbladder, and maybe sometimes without any issues. However, you need that. It would be better if you had it. Let's put it that way. Nothing's random or any, so a system is crucial in that we live in one. We operate in one. And when we don't operate in the ideal system and collective, problems start appearing. Again, you take someone out of let's go wider and take someone out of their environment and you put them in a new environment. It's awkward and they may not make it. Some make it, some do, some thrive, some don't. I remember in biology they had a, let me see if I remember this right. They had an issue with a certain species in an area, and they took a frog, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. They took this species out of a different area to handle because they should be the prey to the species that was getting overgrown. But when they brought that new species in, it took care of the problem they had, the outgrowth of another thing. But then it had no predator, so it proliferated and it messed up the entire thing. So you need that balance. So saying all of that, and you remember even organs, when they take an organ and they put it in someone and it can reject it because it doesn't fit in the system. So when you take all that now, you bring it back to how it can matter to our listeners, for instance, what is your system? And I'm going to dovetail over to what Dr. Charlie said. He said, if you have a supportive system, you can get through a lot. But the problem is you have to take the time in your life and build that support system because you can't, when you're in the midst of trauma or an issue, you can't now go, where's everybody? I don't have support. But what have you built? Yeah, when you're fine and you're well and everything's going great, you can be like that where you don't put time in or invest in anyone. But now when trouble comes, whether you need financial help or moral support or emotional support, I recently I recently went through a traumatic experience with my son. And I'm telling you, the support is overwhelming. The support from so many levels, financial support. I've got a friend who's, what do you guys need? People who sent food, they sent well wishes, they sent everything. We were like overwhelmed with, pleasantly overwhelmed with support, and it continues. People still checking in. Hey, how you doing? Still, but that was built over time, and then you start to realize, I'll go back. My father, if I go back to my father, personal issue, we found out my father died 2 years after he passed. No one knew. He was an unmarked grave in a local cemetery, and 20 years later, his family put a stone above him with his name on it finally. No one was there. So what are you taking time to build your networks? I know what when you're alive and well and things are going well, you don't think you need anybody. Maybe you have that thought press, I don't need anybody to you do need at some point. I've been in seniors homes where people no one comes to visit this person. This one my stepmother-in-law, grandmother, uh, actually my grandmother-in-law, when she was 90 and we went into her seniors home and we brought her over for Christmas, but we'd say, hey, what about that lady? And they say, oh, no one comes to visit. She's there alone, or he's there alone, or what? Because they never built that network. I can't imagine myself being alone at any point in my life because of the investment I have made in people. I can't imagine being alone because of that, and the vulnerability to say yes. It's unbelievable. It's incredible. So I'm blessed that way. But I've put that work in. So Dr. Charlie said, you need the groups. Let's talk about Alcoholics Anonymous. Some people, I've had friends who say, "Oh, I'm not getting into that. That's a cult. I'm not getting it." Something they've pushed back, and now they've found out, oh my God, it's a great support system. It's a great network, and I'm thriving in it now. I wish I would have done this 30 years ago because of the support system. So you need that support. And business wise, Raymond touched on it. There's an African proverb that said, we can go fast alone, but we can go farther together with help and your network. Your network is your net worth, right? And business wise, again, someone comes in, Ray said they don't fit in the group. The wisdom is hire slow and fire fast. That fit has to be there to make it work. So, in summary, it's crucial that we start building our networks, that we start being vulnerable. We do need people. I don't know if you're under this idea that sitting at home alone and that's the way to go to protect your ego or not be vulnerable and get people in, or you have to build that network. You have to build that network. You will need somebody at some point in your life. So with that, I'll pass that over to Mr. B, Mr. Brandon.
Right. Thanks, Al. I've already taken quite a few notes this morning, so shortly into this discussion. But what a interesting topic. It opens the door to go multiple directions, and uh, something you just touched on, Al, that the importance of being intentional when you're building your system, right? Whether it's personal or professional, you know, either way, it doesn't matter. The need to be intentional. Nothing. This idea that everything just falls into your lap, right? The stars align, and that there's some intentionality that I believe occurs prior to things aligning, right? It just doesn't magically happen, so to speak. Physical, from a physical standpoint, though, it is fascinating what the designer and creator of us and how our bodies work, and just the whole. You look at the universe as a whole, and like you talked about nature and the interaction of it all is rather incredible, and almost to much of it is to the point of it we don't even understand it, right? Or we're not even capable of understanding it, which just makes it even more fascinating, so to speak. But we step down from that, that level of it and really look at what we do have some influence, wouldn't say full control, but some influence in, and is is the systems of life, from a personal and professional standpoint. I think this applies, and it's the network, like you stated, having the right connecting, building relationships, authentic relationships, not superficial or surface level, but deep relationships with people, and the right kind of people. We talked about that African proverb a second ago. It falls right in line with, we as humans were never meant to be alone, right? We were designed to be in community, right? And a lot of people are out there trying to do things on their own. So I mean, that's the question I would ask some folks listening. That are listening to this is, are you trying to do it all on your own? Right? Is your pride in the way? Are you willing to go ask that one person that may have the answer or knowledge or experience for help or guidance and assistance? And sometimes we don't do that, and we keep trying to shove a round peg into a square hole, and it just doesn't seem to always work. I mean, you might force some stuff, but there's going to be some damage and some pain with that, where seeking advice, from the right people or someone that's come before you, and maybe not, maybe you just bounce it off somebody. It's amazing how when you talk through a situation or an idea, what comes of that. So really being intentional with your relationships. And Ray, you talked about systems and the right pieces and the car analogies. Great. What an awesome super vehicle we could build if we just little of this and a little of that. But it's not, from a mechanical standpoint, I'm not going to say it's impossible, but it's typically completely unheard of. But that's the beauty of the relationships with people, right? Because we are all so very different backgrounds, different walks of life. So we're different. That the life that each and every one of us on this podcast have lived is different. Kind of like, Al's. I see Al. He's more like the Ferrari, of the group, and I feel more like the Chevy truck, out of this group. You got, some Lamborghinis and Porsches here, and here's Brandon. But together, if you will, if you stay with the thought process there, man, the four of us, powerhouse of knowledge and experience, and
Yeah.
really leaning. I think what I'm getting out of this is really leaning on that group, but the building part of it is really really important, because as you uh, said, Ray, adversity is going to come. And I think that's so true. I don't think anyone gets out of this world without, unscathed, so to speak. It's a couple of scars, not just bruises, you know. And I think about some of the current youth and some of the next two generations that are coming into into the workforce, and coming out of being cared for by their parents to a certain degree and coming into society as contributors. And some would say that, they've been handled with kid gloves or helicopter parents, and been given this, very sheltered life. And then I also think, also knowing some of being real, I don't think that's totally true. I think their adversity looks different from ours, right? In my experience. And I think that's important to understand, that it's not fair to say, oh, they all got trophies. And there's some truth to that. But at the same time, their adversity looks different. It's not traditionally what I've experienced, right? And thank goodness in some aspects of that. So being open-minded to what other people have gone through, or their systems they've built, or not built, and have fallen into them. But yeah, it's who's that? I always go back to this and bring it up at some point. It's that table, right? The table you built, and who's sitting at your table. Are the right pieces there? Are the right people at the table to contribute to what you're trying to do? And early on, Ray, you talked about ethics and values, right? Morals. Are they within a line with you? Is the people around you, do their values, could you take on their values, right? Could you support those or their ethics? And um, you want to know how you're going to turn out. Look at who you're associating with, right? What kind of person you are. So with that, I'll pass the mic.
Amen.
Yeah, me too, Brandon. I filled out the page with notes. I filled out the page with notes, and I was listening to a short clip of an interview yesterday on the Patrick Bet David podcast. It was with this actor. I forgot his name, but he has, I think, over 50 or 100 patents under his name. He's like an actor, but a super brilliant mind, okay, in Hollywood. And just going back to what you just talked about, Brandon, about being intentional, I take it back to one of the things you said a few weeks back or last week. I don't even remember, but you talked about your posture, okay? Your heart posture, leadership posture, how important that is and how it sets the stage for everything else after, okay? But this actor was talking about Hollywood and how so many actors or people who seem famous are really, really struggling, okay? Because in order to have fame, and now these things are coming out a lot with like the Diddy case and all kinds of other things in that nature. In order to reach fame, they became very fluid with their morals and their values. So they obtained the shiny object, but they really lost their soul and they're struggling in it because now the shiny object means nothing. Okay, means nothing. So now it raises the question, what's most important? Okay, is it the shiny object or is it the process of authentically, you know, um, going after your dreams, whatever it is, living your life? Okay, because once you reach the shiny object, there's always another shiny object to chase. But if you lose yourself in the process, man, everything loses its color. Everything loses its taste, and life is just not the same. So just by starting with the right posture, being very intentional, um, that matters. That matters so much. And you're 100% right about that when you think about building your table. And could you take on, when you look at someone else or something else, could you take on what comes with that? Will it completely change your nature? I mean, everything's meant to evolve, great. But if it breaks something that's more valuable, okay, than anything else within you, man, is that too steep of a cost? So that's definitely a good question to ask. And Charlie, when you were talking about the boxer and Mike Tyson, I think Mike Tyson's the greatest example because even at his age, Mike Tyson makes people nervous. Okay, still makes people nervous. And we see it in young UFC fighters. It's a great example, I find, because when you look at young UFC fighters who start to have success, okay, and who build a winning streak, they start talking about, hey, give me my title shot. Okay. But what they don't realize is they're not ready for it. Okay, because sometimes they're thrusted into the limelight way too early and then they realize that this is a different level. They might be stronger right now, they might be faster, but they don't have the road work, they don't have the experience, they don't have the answers to certain problems that are thrown at them, and you see it in their eyes. When they're in that situation and they realize, wow, I can't punch my way out of this, I really don't know what to do, and this older, more experienced guy is totally doing whatever, to me, it kills their confidence. And you see it. And sometimes it takes their career back years back. So I know for some of the young stars, for instance, there's this guy, Bo Nichols, right now. He was the NCAA wrestling champ, all of that. They're being very careful with him. Yes, he's very talented, but they're going step by step because they know, okay, this young, great fighter with all this potential, if he's thrown in there too quick and we know he's not ready for it yet, okay, it will take him back so far back, and we can see it in his eyes. So that's true. So there are certain things that, yes, you can look for someone to teach you, but there's sometimes, and this is a controversial take I'm going to take right now, but I believe in certain instances, too much teaching prevents learning. Okay. And learning is more important than teaching, in my opinion. A kid, I can't teach him how to walk. No matter what I do, he has to learn, on his own. If I try to teach him too much, maybe I'm gonna push that back. He has to learn. And I believe the same things in life where it's important to have teachers around you, but I want those teachers to be learners first. They are learners that teach me how to learn because this is what truly matters. Okay, in the end, this is what brings advancement. And Alvin, when you talked about investing in people and you'll never be alone, um, I think that's so true. I also believe that if you truly love yourself, you'll never be alone. Okay. But if you truly love yourself, naturally you'll invest in you, but naturally you'll invest in people because you will find that there's so many unique things about yourself and things that can benefit not only you but others, okay, but others. And no matter what you choose to do in life, it's important to bring them out. They cannot only stay here within. And that leads me to my next point, guys, is when we go back to the systems, okay? And I'll try to make this as clear as possible, but if I take the engine again and I take the transmission, all of them together create a car, okay? All of them together. But if I only take one individually, it serves no purpose. If I only have an engine, I can't move from point A to point B. Okay. The engine needs the other parts. The engine is nothing without the other parts. Okay. So when we stretch our thinking, okay, from just me to us, from just me to us, that's when we create something totally different. Because just me, yeah, I can work on my personal growth. I can listen to the Mastery Alliance. I can do all these things. But if absolutely nothing comes out of it, okay, absolutely nothing comes out of it, it doesn't really have the same impact. It doesn't go as far, you know, it doesn't make as much as a difference. Maybe for me, yes, but in the end, I'm part of a system also. As Alvin said, life is a system. And lastly, just going back to the teachings of Dr. Russell Acuff that I started with, he said another concept that I find was very interesting that will help us with this. And this is a great example just listening to you guys, but you guys give information, okay? Information is useful for sure. But if I don't take this information and really focus on it, I cannot acquire knowledge. Okay. And without knowledge and doing, I cannot have understanding. And without understanding, I cannot have wisdom. Okay. I cannot have wisdom. So let's think of systems in that way. First, we need a plan. We need to be intentional. We need to make sure that the right parts fit. Ultimately, we have to put that system in action. We have to see if it works. We have to adjust. We have to get the information. The more we do that, we gain understanding. Okay, we gain understanding of what works, what doesn't work, of who we are, of who we want to be, of how we want to affect things. And the more we do that, we get to acquire true wisdom, you know, true wisdom, which ultimately is what we're searching for, is what we're searching for. I was asked a great question this week. I was coaching a franchisee, and she was struggling to lead her staff. And we had a conversation on that. I kind of gave her an action plan. We really kind of dove into the subject. And lastly, before I left, she asked me, Raymond, do you have imposter syndrome sometimes? You know, dealing with all these entrepreneurs that see life in different ways, that have this, that have that. And, you know, as I looked at her, I really thought about it and I realized that a few years back I did, but now I've done this so much. I've seen it so much. You know, I know that I know what I know. 100%. Okay. I don't know what I don't know, and that's why I'm here. I'm always seeking more. But when it comes to this thing, coaching leaders, I know that I know what I know, and I'm about it, and I live it, and I breathe it. So it was a great realization for me as I answered the question. I was like, I don't have imposter syndrome anymore. I really don't. Just because I'm in it. I do it. And I got to go beyond just the information phase and knowledge phase and understanding phase, that I'm starting, I believe, to acquire a little bit of wisdom. You know, there's much more to have, but a little bit, you know? That's how you break through imposter syndrome. That's how you break through doubt, is by doing it 100%. So your systems, they're important, but unless you put them into action, they cannot transform you either. Okay. They cannot transform you. And your transformation not only serves you, but serves the world. It really does. So with that, I'll pass the mic.
Lots of great wisdoms there, Ray. The thing that I've gotten from everyone's inputs, and I wrote it down, circled it. You know, our systems must be sustainable. They've got to be sustainable. And there's a lot of things that contribute to that, right? And I look at, especially here in the States, you know, there's a proliferation of pharmaceutical products, right? People taking these weight loss products, and or people taking products to boost their libido or things like that. And those products are temporary fixes, but they're not sustainable, right? And so I wrote down fool's gold here, because people will sustain these weight losses. Oh, I lost 30 pounds or 40 pounds, right? They'll say, and there's commercials and all these things. But when we follow these stories, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 4 years from now, 10 years from now, and again, this is 100% of the time, 100% of the time, those things were not sustainable. And a lot of times that drug is off the shelf, right? Because of the side effects and all the problems that it caused. And people tend to talk about the benefit and not talk about the other things that are happening behind the scene. Then enough people have experienced this issue, some kind of medical issue, and now said, "Oh, that's not good," and let's pull that off the shelf. Whereas if we have a system to maintain and control our weight that's healthy, right? That's fundamentally sound, that's sustainable. So if you see us 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, our body composition is very similar because we're doing things in a sustainable way. And it's tempting to take those shortcuts, but shortcuts are not sustainable. And we see it over and over and over again, whether people are taking steroids now. I was watching a podcast with Dorian Yates, who I think he, what, 6-time Mr. Olympia winner. I mean, one of the great bodybuilders, but he's saying that when he was an athlete, steroids were for athletes. Now it's mainstream. It says people that are not even competing are taking steroids because of what it'll do for their body. He says, but it's not sustainable. He said, I hear it all the time. Well, I'm gonna take these steroids, get the size and strength, and I'm gonna get off of them. I'm gonna work real hard and eat right and sleep right. I'm gonna maintain the size. And he's like, no, you're not. He said, your hormone level's gonna go down. He says, all your gains you're gonna shed in 3 to 4 months. It's not sustainable. And then in some cases, your body loses the capacity to produce its own testosterone, and now you're on permanent hormone replacement because you've damaged your body through this misuse, an unsustainable method of gaining muscle mass, size, and strength. So that is so important. And then another thing that really hit home is you talked about, hey, there can be too much teaching, right? You got to be learning. You can't teach a baby how to walk. They've got to figure it out, right? Well, they figure it out through adversity. Okay, through adversity. And that is the thing in life and in all of this is, there are places we can go. There are libraries we can go and find knowledge, where there are people we can call and find wisdom and support and help. But adversity is a unique animal. Okay. No one else can give you adversity, right? Adversity has lessons for you that only it can teach you, right? And we've got to be willing to go through adversity to gain those lessons. There's a price, but on the end of that, it it's so empowering, liberating. It equips you to sustain the gains you've made, the growth you've had, and equips you to help others. But that is a door that we all must walk through, and very few of us walk through it voluntarily, right? However, it is so important that, when our children are learning to ride a bike, there's some adversity there, but we're close by, right? Because we're not going to let them fall too far, right? We're going to make sure they don't get in traffic, but we're going to let them go through that adversity, because through that, they're going to learn how to ride the bike. And then they have the self-confidence because they went through the adversity, right? They did it themselves. And it's instinctual to human beings to do that. When babies start to walk and people try to like balance them, a lot of they'll push you away, right? They'll push your hand away because they want to do it. And it's so important to let them, right? And they fall and they bump their heads and all these things, and it doesn't feel good, I'm sure, but they don't stop. They get up and they go through that until they master walking, and then in a very short time they're masters at walking, right? But not without that adversity. But if we take the adversity away, do they ever master walking? Probably not, right? So understand when you're going through adversity that it is part of the journey. It is a necessary part of the journey, and it will equip you for the rest of the journey. And with that, I'll pass the mic.
Unbelievable. There's so many. I'm thinking about how to even get this in some order because there's a ton of information there. And if we type back to Ray's main meal and how it ties into personal mastery. In order, so no one, there is no new ideas. The other day we were listening to some latest music, and everyone is sampling some kind of a music lately, especially in the R&B and urban music and so on, and even country, whatever. Everyone samples just a tad bit of someone's either sound or a little bite out of this or their style or so you when it comes to having a system means a collection of, as Ray mentioned, the car. There's a collection of parts that makes this whole, and it runs perfectly. The body's a group of organs and cells and organelles, and your business is a group of people, products, and the services, and your ecosystem, and so on. So it's a group, but we need those ancestral or past iterations to keep building and making this better. The first car, the first airplane, the first anything. We need those ancestors to build because you are whoever you are now and whatever you do now is a remnant of something that preceded you. So you need those systems. Now I'm going to step back a bit and talk about when I started talking about my part about systems and building your community. I thought, well, I can't sit here and lie. I'm actually an introvert. And I don't run out looking for, I'm not a part of a bowling league or go find friends and do baseball. My, my, my niece asked me the other day, said, Uncle, who are your boys? Like, because when I come home from my office, I mostly spend a lot of time with my family. I stay in. And my boys are here. If they were close, these would be my boys. Or whatever it might be. But I'm mostly an introvert. So the minute I mention that, I know some people are going, "Good God, I got to go out and build friends," and I like they're introverts too. But what we're saying here is not to go hide yourself in a cave because you don't want to build a social network. I'm not that. I get invited often to go out and have a drink here and drink, but I'd rather go home. And it bothered me for a while that I wasn't an extrovert and I didn't want to do this because you should do it, networking. But I don't want to do it. I've spent a lot of time with people. My job is people. So I found, I was feeling guilty and I shouldn't feel guilty because I need that time to renew my social battery so if you're that type, this is what my point is. You may not want to go out, but be intentional though about how you're building, how you're treating people. Because as I think it was Maya Angelou, people don't care much you know until they know how much you care for them. Right? So I'm very appreciative and blessed and grateful with people who support me and so on and so on. So I pour when I'm with someone, even a call or checking in on them or they're checking in on me. I'm really building. I'm very intentional about making sure people know I'm grateful for them. So, and this is probably why I get a lot of support and a lot of. So be intentional about that. And then Ray, or I think it was Ray, Brandon reminded me of a book that I just recently read by Dan Sullivan. It says, "Who, not how." See, a lot of times when you want to level up in your whatever it is you're doing, I'm going to use business. Say you're stuck at a certain point. A lot of people think, oh, I'm going to go out and get that degree or do that course, that workshop, and learn that new thing. And but that's not what they should be doing. They're the talent. They love sales and that's what they're great at. But now you're gonna go learn social media. And that's a moving target every time it changes. So you think to yourself, who, not how. I don't want to know how to do it, but who do I have in my network, or who can I collaborate with that knows social media, that loves social media, and would thrive in it. Meanwhile, my job is to go out and deliver the service or the information. So, who in your network, not how can I do this? That's not your thing. So, this is again why you want to be intentional about building. When you look around at your groups and the systems that you have, who's in it? Be intentional about building and nurturing and investing in this rich. Brandon, go back to Brandon again. He referred to himself as a Chevy. Well, if I had a collection of cars, I don't just want to see Lambos and Ferraris in that collection. I want to see an old Chevy, the Buicks. I love my 1968 Camaro that I had way back in the day. I love those cars, the Avengers and the different cars. So you need that rich network, diversity, a diverse network of people in it to build. How are you building your network? That's the question. How are you choosing the people you're around? I love diversity. I if you look at my life, I don't have to even tell you, just go look at my life. It's diverse as anything. I've got everything in a whole, it's like a buffet when you see Ray attended the celebration and he saw that buffet of people just coming in and out. We never stopped. So, who's billing? The other thing I want you to think about when you think about this conversation is every so often check in on your systems. If you want a certain result from your life, health, finance, relationship, your fitness, your business, the quality of your system will effortlessly get you the results that you want. If you have let's talk about business. If you ever look at some of the best businesses, you may not agree with the product they serve or deliver, but their business is solid. McDonald's, excellent business. In Canada, we have Tim Hortons, excellent business. Starbucks, systems. How do they deliver the product? So every so often, look at your health. Look at your system. Is it getting you where you want to be? It's your system. Is the workout the right one for you? Is your diet the right one for you? Systems. Because when you get your systems, you can lean on that. I'll go back to something Charlie mentioned with the boxer. You won't rise to the occasion. You'll fall to your level of systems or preparation. So Mike Tyson, you mentioned Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson's never lost before. He gets knocked down by Buster Douglas. He doesn't know what to do because he's never been knocked down. They count him out. If he knew what to do, he would have looked up at the ref, went to one knee, took the 8, 9 count, stood up. Boom. But he didn't know what to do. He's searching for his mouth guard. He didn't know how that works, and he's never been here before. So, what are your systems, everybody? Look at your finance. Your finance. Are you broke all the time? Well, check your system. Are you overspending? Do you have more month left at the end of your money? Check your systems. Look at your relationships. Anything. Be intentional. So, who, not how. Imposter syndrome. I'm going to touch on that real quick. You develop imposter syndrome only when you're playing out of your zone of brilliance. And also when you're making the product, the service that you deliver, the leadership about you. I have never, maybe, I won't say never, I can't remember, but I'm not gonna say never. I haven't in a long time, to my memory, experienced imposter syndrome because my intention is how do I make you better? How can I serve you? And if I come from that position of how can I serve you, I think it's almost impossible to get imposter syndrome because then I'm so focused on you. Who am I impostoring? It's impossible. So again, going back to what the conversation of this whole thing is, building your systems in order to achieve mastery is all about introspection of do you even have a system? Actually, everybody has a system. It may not be getting them the results they want, but everybody has a system. It might be chaotic, but that's your system. It's chaos. So, what is your system? Who are you serving? And how are you building this insurance? I'm going to call it insurance. When you're young, middle-aged, young, you may think you don't need anybody. You go home crotchety and you don't want to, be social. But there's some point, someone, my patients, as they get older, they get a scary feeling that they're alone, and if they ever get sick, the pandemic actually brought a lot of that feeling. If something happens to me and I'm alone at home, I fall, I get sick, I can't, no one calls on me. And what happens? They start to really, it happens to you. You start to think about what happens to me if dot, dot, dot. Build your systems, build your network. It might sound like I'm an introvert. I don't want to, I don't need people. You need people. Trust me. Someplace, somehow, you will need someone for something. Remember who, not how. With that, I pass it back.
So I'm looking at the time thinking like, how do I squeeze 30 minutes into the next 5? But
Yeah.
it plays right into what I'm about to say, and it's your mind posture, right? You mentioned heart posture earlier, and when somebody did, and I have to look at my notes here, but I'm not going to do that with time. But it's plant the seed of what you were just talking about, Al, in regards to, I'm going through this, or, the fears of what happened with COVID, and the what ifs and whatnot. And really, I mean, I've been doing some self-reflecting on this statement of, with this phrase of mind posture. Like, what is my mind posture going? Not just mindset. You think about posture, it's like, I'm gonna sit up straight, kind of thing. Where's your mind at when you're going into building these systems? Where's your mind at in regards to what's controlling it? Who's controlling it? Are you even in control of it? Or is it, like you just said, complete chaos? Your thoughts are running amok. Your visions are running. Are you zeroed in to a certain degree? And is it in line with the system you have in place, right? And I think if we if there was some reflecting going on, if individuals that those of you watching this that are honest with yourselves may need to step back and be like, okay, where's my mind posture as I approach this system for this desired outcome? Is it in the right place? Are those around me in the system associated with this system, what's their mind posture? Am I reacting or am I responding? Right? What's the end game? What's my desired outcome at the end of the day, from this system that I'm trying to build? And what are the motives behind it? I think that plays a role too. Is it greed? Is it selfish? Or is it to help people? We could go on and on and on this topic, but mind posture, I believe mind posture is very, very important as well when building out a system and then executing that system. I can relate to the imposter syndrome aspect, and I think it's just a matter of looking at the past and thinking, oh, I shouldn't be here, or I don't deserve to be here, and so many individuals, just like the three of you, you have assured me that I deserve to be here and that I should be here, right? Whether it's on this podcast or anything else I'm doing in life that I've shared with you all, and sharing in the wins, so to speak. But it's the mind posture, wasn't up straight, right? Wasn't in line. So with that, I'll pass the mic.
That's why the power of the group, the unit, is so important. You know, because as a team, um, if I have my head down, because in this moment I forgot to see the truth and where my systems brought me, I can have Brandon see that and just, okay, raise my chin. That's it. No need to say any words because Brandon knows. You know, Brandon knows. Just needs that little reminder of vice versa, right? And as Alvin said, the more diverse group of people you have in there who have maybe one directing line at their core, they they're very much the same. You know, outwardly they're different, but at their core they're very much the same. Man, that's where we're so much stronger, and just maybe because as you said, Brandon, we have 3 minutes left, so I'll try to go quickly with this one, okay? Um, and this is a message for me, but for anyone listening too. Let's say if you're a believer, if you're not, it's okay. But if I talk about Jesus, for instance, even Jesus needed people. Okay.
Mhm.
So when you really look at it, right? He came in, he had parents, he had disciples, he needed people to accomplish his mission here on earth. He wasn't all alone. He wasn't all by himself. That's one. Number two, as I look at it too, and that's so important about personal mastery is that he wasn't just secluded by himself, being all powerful God and not sharing that to other people. You know, not spreading the message, not doing miracles, not going out, intentionally going out, right? So for us, as we use our systems to grow us, you know, to make us into what we can be, it's very important to remember that we need to be intentional about going out and sharing that. Because maybe that's what it's all about in the end. If you're the greatest in history at one thing, but no one knows and you never helped anybody, were you really? You know? And I'm an introvert too. You know, so I'm not in a room full of people, and Alvin can attest to that. He was busy doing his own thing, but in a room full of people, what I usually do, okay, is that I have this reservoir of social energy, right? So I'm starting out, I speak to a lot of people, but then I'll find my spot and I'll have intimate, close, real conversations. That's where I thrive. That's where I can dive deeper, not in front of the whole group. You know, this drains the reservoir. I can use it for a little bit, but that's my system. That's how I work. But still, I have to go out. I have to go out. I have to share it. It's part of it. It's important. That's the whole human experience in the end. You know, we were never meant just to be alone. We were never meant just to do it for ourselves. By doing it for yourself, you can empower someone else to do the same ultimately. So this was my last message, but just to remember that even Jesus needed people, and even Jesus went out and sought out people, you know? So why not us? And I'll pass the mic.
Why not us?
Why
Yeah,
not us?
I love it. So, yeah, my final thoughts on this is I think that as human beings, we all have seeds of greatness, right? And so you think about this metaphor where you've got seeds of greatness in your pocket, and those seeds of greatness are meant to be planted out in the world and to grow and help others, right? Contribute to others, impact other people. And to Ray's point today, if we have a system in place to do that, it'll ensure that our seeds of greatness, when we die, they won't be in our pocket. We won't die with our seeds of greatness in our pocket. So with that, I'll pass the mic.
All right. So you're just gonna drop it like that. Okay. Okay. All right. So let's go around and finish off with the one word that we want ourselves and the listeners to take away with them. So mine, I'll take it first, is intentionality. Be intentional about your systems and the people that you're putting in your circle. Ensure they're the right fit. Ray talked about the engine and the different parts to make it run right. Reminds me of a team of athletes. Stacking the team at superstars is not always guarantee a win. They have to fit the right system and fit in and be willing to fall to the system. Pass the mic.
Man, I'll go with walk. Okay, so use your feet, go out and walk. Don't stop. Don't give up. Fall down, keep going. Okay, keep going and seek out people. Be out there. Just yeah, walk. That's really the word about you don't stop. You just keep going.
My word will be sow, and not in the sense of clothing, but in the sense of sowing seeds, right? Sowing seeds for relationships, sowing seeds for mental health and well-being, sowing seeds for family, sowing seeds for friends. Just take that action. Take action every day. Be sowing those seeds and do it systematically. And then there'll be a great harvest at the end.
Yeah. Well, on that, I'll go with I think it's fitting, kind of like what this whole thing's about, this personal mastery and what we're doing here for others. And it's that fertilization, right? Fertilizing others, right? I'm gonna play off you, Charlie, a little bit there as far as sowing those seeds. I've been really trying to help build up others. It's a whole nother conversation. Lifting someone up, you can only lift someone up for a period of time, but when you build them up, right, they're building their own, you're helping contribute to their own foundation, and they can withstand on their own. So fertilization, just trying to fertilize and help those others grow.
All right. I love it. Love it, everybody. So that is it for the wisdoms, the alliance this week. We wish you all a great week. Remember, it would serve me and the alliance really to the highest level if we knew you were journaling after we're done and really being a student of life. We don't want you to get through life, we want you to get from life. And if you know someone who would, again, be interested in this information, please share, like, subscribe, do us that service. And one day we have a lot of plans for the rest of this year. So one day we'll see you in person at some point and share the message. All right, until then, we always say we want to leave you with three things. Peace. We send you love and with a sprinkle of soul. All right, my fellas, I will see you. Listeners, have a great week. Fellas, have a great week. Make it great.
Yep.
Have a great week, guys.
Yeah,
All right,
love you
peace
Love you
guys.
guys. Have a
Take
great
care.
week.
Love you guys.
Yes, you got it.